Hi all, right, welcome back. That's in Kharkov, German solo, part 2. So, yeah, nothing really happened as of yet, just the setup adjustments. So this is going to be our first impulse. Now, I didn't really get much of a chance to look over rules today at all, so I'm going to find myself bouncing back and forward checking the rule book, I think. Yeah, because I'm going to be doing a lot of things for the first time. My belief is that normal movement and combat and all that should be somewhat similar. And right now it's my impulse, and I'm pretty sure I should be able to move things without worrying about anything. Now, one of the ones I need to keep in mind that was ringing bells for me when reading through these rules. Pretty sure this rule was also within when you played the Allied solo version in Ardennes, and it was when you moved the unit. Right, let's just talk about Ardennes for a minute. When you moved the Allied unit, it had to end in a hex that was able to trace supply. Well, it looks like they've brought that to this as well. I'm not sure what the real reason for that is, but there must be something within the game that's wanting to put this restriction on the German units here. So it's page 29, 10.5 German movement and supply trace limits. A German unit can't end its movement or advance after combat in a hex from which it can't trace supply. However, exception, a German unit that starts its move or advance in a hex from which it can't trace supply and is unable to move or advance to a hex from which it can trace supply is not bound by this restriction. This limit applies only during German activations, not when checking German proximity at other times. Okay, quite good to know that one then as well. So that's something new, whereas we didn't have any issues in this Soviet solo game. We didn't care about having to end them in a hex that they could trace supply, but also there it is saying that the exception is that if you start in a hex that can't trace supply, that seems to say that you need to move back in a hex that can, but if you can't, then you're not bound by that restriction. We'll maybe come back to that, but So I think that was just one of the things. I mean, it might not apply in these first movements because I'm coming back, I'm not. So so I've not, I know how the game works, but it's going to be more about once we move into the Soviet activation, because that's when the movement methods are going to come in. I'm going to draw cards and all that. Right, let's just see if we can get a first impulse going here for ourselves. And I think initially I should be able to just keep the cards there. Obviously I can't get, that's the thing with bringing things down, I'm not able to zoom out. That's me zoomed right out in that position there, but I think it'll be fine. There's space about, and I could at a push move back on that wee table if I feel the need. I think I might do that when we're looking at the Soviet cards, because it looks like I'm going to get the glare off that lamp, so I'm going to have to keep switching the lamp off, whereas if I put the tripod on this wee table, we should be able to do that from there. Okay. I think my initial look at things was we don't have a third core, so we can't do anything with them. 40 core, well, I don't think there's an urgency to move them. I mean, they are a stack of units that could go and get aggressive, but I don't think we want to be doing that. I think we want to be staying outside this artillery barrage zone where they are, and protecting that city, and if need be, dropping back into the city, and we've not got card for the third core. So what we do have is core Rouse 57, 48, and 57 there, yeah. So we've got, that's only one unit. Well, we've only got, no, I tell a lie, this guy's dispersed. So we've got 2 units there. So I did think activate there and that dispersal would get removed, but he's in a bit of a dodgy looking state as it is anyway. I mean, obviously the cards that were discarded Was it a third tank card? Yeah, see this is the cards that they played in that first. So they played the third tank card. They've also played the Stavka card. I think that was for the combat tactics, I think, if I remember the wee note. However, that does show that they play the third tank. Now, they're not restricted in whatever they did activate the previous turn, they can't they can still activate again. They can consecutive impulses of their armies is fine for them. So while we're looking at third tank saying, well, they've just activated the cards in the discard pile, that doesn't mean anything. They could just as easily draw another third tank card. Which looks kind of scary, because that is where they've actually opened the gap. This is where we lost a unit in here, I think, wasn't it? The 48 core unit. I think that's where he was anyway. Where did they start? What hex was it? 0604 he started. Yeah, so he started in there. So yeah, so he was obviously we had a line, and that's him broke through that line already. So before looking at that, my initial thought was core rouse. We could get 1, 2, 3, 4 units, move them outside the artillery barrage zone. This guy's already outside, but it would also enable us to remove that disperse marker from her. He's also nicely sitting in the woods. Yeah, villages. What do they do? Do they give any defender benefit then? I kind of thought they did, but I'm not seeing any. Hang on, no, that's not it. Right, let's look up villages. Yeah, no, they don't do anything at all. Page 4 tells you Soviet village hexes indicate locations in which Soviet garrison markers may be placed, in addition to town and city hexes. Villages have no effect on unit placement, movement, and combat. Most, but not all, village symbols are marked as targets for a Voronezh front, Southwest front, or both. Yeah, so they're marked in a specific colour, aren't they? Whereas this one's for Voronezh. I get muddled. Yeah, Southwest is the darker colour. Voronezh front. That one, see, it's got both colours, so that's marked for both, and then this one's only for Southwest front. So yeah, my guess is just when it comes down to garrisons going in it. So yeah, well, there's not any benefit to moving into one of them. I thought for some reason I thought there was, but okay. So yeah, and I was saying that my initial thought was probably core rouse, but we're having a bit of a closer look and seeing that there's this gap here, and seeing that a third tank activate. Not only is this guy in probably a whole lot of trouble. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I remove the dispersal off him, it's giving him a slightly better hope of survival. But yeah, I'd be doubtful of that. However, they can just run to Volchansk here, and yeah, and then that got me thinking. Well, maybe we should activate a 48 core. This guy's in here. He's a strong unit. So 1, 2 breaking zone of control. 3, 4, 5. I mean, I could potentially. I could put him in one of these hexes, or I could retreat him right into the. He can actually reach the town. I don't know. See, this is where I stumble a little bit, and I've already had a comment from Michael saying, "Oh, this should be challenging the left flank of the Soviets." So I'm like, yeah, it should be. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I've not got a clue. And I had to edit my post and say, look, don't be looking for any great strategies here. As well, I dare say I might get some new viewers just arrive into this if they're just maybe more interested in the German solo side of things. Well, new viewers maybe for a couple of episodes, a couple of parts until you realise what you're in for. Yeah, in fact, you maybe already heard me say I had 92 parts that were over an hour long for my Soviet solo, and then that's maybe you're away now. You're not here anymore. Yeah, and then the main purpose for me I'm playing this game for myself. It seems like it does bring some stuff out. It's brought some rules, questions out, and all the stuff I've done. So I think I study it that heavily and look into it. And sometimes I've come up with stupid things. My last question ended up being a real stupid one. But some of them I've thought are stupid, and then you ask them and you get some interesting responses, So it does kind of find things out a bit in that. But the main reason is for me just to sit and enjoy playing the game. However, my main what it is I want to do is not make mistakes. That is the big thing for me. And you might laugh and say, well, yeah, you can't play these games without making a mistake. And we know I know I can, but that's my number one goal, is to limit it to as little as possible in the error department. And if errors appear, fix them. And then if for some reason they're just not noticed and you find out later and there's nothing you can do about them, at least bring them up and let the other people that are going to watch the video say, okay, that was a mistake there, that should have been, So, yeah, I've got plenty of folk helping me find these errors as well. So, yeah. Right, so I started thinking maybe I should activate the aim instead, a core rouse, because that's maybe more important. But I don't know if I should bring, what is the right play? Should I bring the unit round to here and just plank them in front of the third tank unit there? Or should I? Obviously this is a more protective hex, but it's further back from these two units, and it means there's, if he goes, let's see, if he is back here, right, we could probably zoom in a little bit on this. We don't need to look at the cards for this now, Grant. Get a better view of things. There we go. It's actually better for me looking in the camera as well, because although I've brought the map down this way, it is still up. It's still up. I'm stretching a little bit, but it's still comfortable enough. So that's most important. So if I put that guy there, there isn't a gap between this and this. We're still holding a line there, and but there is here. Yes, okay. So there is a gap there. So by me moving him to this town, there's 3 hexes in between these two units, which means that this unit can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's only 6 movement, isn't he? But he's not far away for Chugev, which is that's where the front marker is. And obviously that's where their objective marker is as well. So that's where they're going to start heading. So that tends to make me think that I shouldn't bring it right back to here. And I should just, I think my way of thinking initially would be, he's safer in there. He's got to take one, he can soak up one hit because he's in a town. And we don't want to be, if I go here and they burst through there, then they just move into the town, take the victory point. But they've still got to get through this unit. They've still got to do something to him. So it probably makes more sense either putting the unit here on the road or maybe even here adjacent. And well, this is where I just don't know what the better option is. So, but I think it makes more sense to activate 48 core, I think, and rather than core rouse. And then next turn we can activate core rouse and then stabilize and align again. Oh, there you go. There's my answer. There's my answer to my question. Then that is inside the artillery barrage line. That hex is not, and that would still hold a line. That hex. So it's a clear hex. Okay, it would be nice if it was a woods hex. That would be more beneficial. And then you say, well, that's a town hex, Grant. That would be more beneficial. But like I've just pointed out to you, it would leave a gap through here. And I think that's not what you want to do. you know, I've always war games. It's always talked about having a solid line. You know, have a solid defensive line. If you're in the particular, if you're on the back foot and you're defending. So I'm going to say that would be the better hex to go with, but these are things I need to learn, and maybe learn by the Soviets doing something that makes me go, oh right, I wish I had moved into the town then. Okay, right. Well, let me think about. I'll just pause and have a wee think about things. Yeah, and I've just realised one of the other cards we probably would have liked to have got was the second SS, wasn't it? So we can deploy our reserves, because we've got four extremely strong second SS units that we'd like to get on the table as well. Now we also have an option. We can pass now, can't we? I believe. I'm pretty sure we can. I'm going to double check these things before I actually go ahead and do them. But hopefully I'll hit the pause button when I'm doing that, rather than bother you all with some rustling of pages and things. Well, I like to read some things out, and it's for what you're watching as well as for myself as well. And then there is a couple of card restrictions, isn't there? I'm going to have to double check on the things. Hang on, this dog. Yeah, okay, just page 9. That's within the German Impulse, step 2 of the. It's in the sequence of play. Step 4, which is a command phase, and it's step 2 of that, which is German Impulse. And then it says you may pass instead of playing a card. Hold on, it's not as simple as that, is it? You may pass instead of playing a card if your draw pile is empty and you have just one card in hand. I think that's stricter than before then. I'm sure you could pass all the time on the Allied solo, couldn't you? Right, and then you must pass if you have no cards. So, and then after completing command, draw cards from your draw pile, if available, to bring your hand up to German hand size limit for the game turn. A Soviet Impulse then begins. So you may pass instead of playing a card if your draw pile is empty and you have just one card. Oh, right, so you can only hang on to your last card and pass. But I mean, you could pass multiple times, I suppose. It doesn't seem to say that you can't do that. So you're maybe hanging on to a card, and the Soviets are, right. The turn must end when the Soviets go right through their cards. Is that right? End the turn. Repeat Soviet and German impulses in the command phase until the Soviet draw pile and your hand and draw pile are all exhausted, at which point the game turn ends. When one side runs out of cards, the other side receives consecutive impulses until they also run out of cards. Right, okay, so we've both got to run out of cards for the turn to end. Okay. I think that might have been the same as well in the previous game. Okay, right, well, make your mind up what you're going to do, Grant. We're 18 minutes in and you're just yakking on. Okay. Okay, pretty sure I'm going to do this. Just notice this does have the engineer's event on it, this card. And this is a card that starts in your hand. And the fact it's only got this unit, the engineer's event's maybe something to think about, because in 3 non-time, non-city hexes in any combination, place an IP on a supplied German unit stack, or remove an IP from a Soviet unit adjacent to a German unit. Right, that second one's unlikely to be happening until later in the game. But placing 3 IPs on supplied German units isn't too shabby. Don't think I would want to do it now. I would want to get them outside the artillery barrage zone and then possibly use that. I think it'd be. The thing is, it does mean we're leaving that guy in there if we're doing that, doesn't it? Yeah, we'll see. Right, okay. So I think I'm going to play. I'm not putting my cards here. It's finding places to put everything. I'll just put them there just now. Right, so going to do this. Going to activate all units in 48 core. Now there's only 2 units. One of them's disperse, so all he's going to get to be able to do is remove his disperse marker. And yeah, I'm pretty sure. Well, I feel like it makes more sense stopping here, but some of you might sort of be saying that we should be going there. I don't know. So I'm going to activate this guy's breaking zone of control. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and yeah, I'm gonna stop him there, because you've got to also remember that if I bring him here, this guy could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into there, right? And then this guy behind him could go 1, 2, 3, 4 into there, and then we're surrounded. Whereas if we leave this guy here, I'm hoping it can't happen. No, it can't happen, because there's no gap for third tank to get through there, or there. So they can't get into this hex or this hex. So they can't surround us. They can flank us, yes, and we are going to be not in a town, but I think that's better. So I'm going to place that guy there, and the other thing I'm going to do is basically just remove the disperse marker. So right, here's a wee thing of the activation. So step 1, activated units conduct operations in the following sequence. Step 1 is from turn 4 onwards, Soviet garrisons are removed. I think my guess is if I'm adjacent to a Soviet garrison, just remove it. Again, we'll double check these things. Then we can move, then we can attack, and we can play additional cards as combat tactics. And then we can place improved positions, and then we remove disperse markers. So with no other units, and remember it goes in that order, so we can't remove the disperse marker and then try and place because this unit's not moved, place an IP on them. We'd have to place the IP first. Well, nothing to place an IP on, so the very last part of our activation is removing the disperse marker. And yeah, I'm gonna have to move things about a little bit. I'm not happy with where everything is. It's mainly because I'm having to bring the map down a bit further. I need to get better organised. Right, so yeah, simple as that. That's it. So yeah, I mean, there's not an awful lot we're doing in the first few turns. We're just trying to make defensive moves and hope for the best, really, I think. It feels like that was a slightly better option than activating the Rouse. I know I was going to get more out of activating the Rouse units, but third tank did activate, then we're losing a victory point right away. I know we're going to lose victory points, it's going to happen. Right, so that's a discard, that's a primary discard, so we discard that. So that's us down to 3 cards, and our hand size for this turn is 4, obviously. So we'll draw our up to 4, so here we go. Aha! Second SS then. So we've none of them on the map, so we're going to deploy them. Well, I mean, unless we wanted to use it as a combat tactic or do something else, but no, we'll be deploying the second SS for that. Okay, that's our impulse over. Nice and simple. Yeah. Okay, right, now on to the meteor stuff with a Soviet impulse. So, right, how am I going to do this? Right, give me a sec. Okay, so on to our first real Soviet impulse. So I'm just looking at the sequence of play somewhere in the back. I mean, it is more detailed in the rulebook, but I should know enough to be able to just use this. We will maybe double check things, because again, sequence of play, and also the player aids, we did notice some sort of like compressed sort of wording on the player aids that kind of could catch you out a little bit in the previous game. So okay, so Soviet impulse, we draw 2 Soviet cards. I place 1 card in command card box, by preference. And it's A, primary card, B, higher command rating, C, lower card ID, place the other card in the auxiliary card box. Right. And this is exactly the same if you've played, I think it's exactly the same if you played Ardennes when playing the Allies, so this was what the Germans done. Okay, so we draw 2 cards. And there's our 2 cards. I'll chuck them down there and then we can adjust them so we can see them better. Maybe zoom out a little bit. Grant. A little bit. There we go. Right, so I'm not putting them in the boxes yet, but I think they're in the right order actually, because the preference is primary card. So you can see this is a primary card, this is not. And it's interesting to note that the next preference is the higher command rating. So this is a 3, this card's a 3, and this card's only a 2. So in actual fact, if this hadn't been a primary, then this would be the command card. However, if you've only got 1 primary card, that becomes a command card, right? If you had 2 primary cards or no primary cards, then it would depend on the number, and it would be the highest number that went in here. Okay, so that is the order that they go in. Okay, so 6th Army is the primary, and Mobile Popov is the, what is it they call it? Auxiliary then. Auxiliary. I think it was called something different. Alright, well, no confused things. It's called auxiliary, right? Okay. Yeah, so we place 1 in the command card box, and then the other card goes in the auxiliary card box. So now we'll check and see if the auxiliary card, so we look at this card first and see if it's got a command event. Not a special event, just a command event. Now it does have an event on it, forward support there, but you can see it's not applicable yet because we're not on turn 5. So there's no event that we could play on there, on that card. If the cards had been round the other way, this one does have an event on it, and we would have been able to look at that and see if we could play it. So no event to play. So now we conduct then we come back to the command card. Now we've checked that for event. It's not happening. Come back to this now, and we conduct the first listed command on the command card that applies, and then commands may include lots of different things. These are the 2 commands that are here. The stuff down the bottom is the combat tactic, reinforced battle. Now a lot of them I think are going to have this, so which it says reuse. So if drawn during combat or applied as a combat tactic, shuffle this card back into the draw pile. And then says no reuse on a mud turn or when 3 or fewer cards are in the Soviet draw pile. So I need to remember that because I think there's quite a lot of these. And the other thing that puts cards back, I think it's that event actually, command delay. But well, anyway, we'll get around to that once it comes round. So we're first going to try and activate all units in the army. So we're going to try and activate all 6th Army units. Okay. Right, so we're just double checking there because there is a condition to activate all units. Page 14, 8.13, unit activation command. I thought this might have been on the player there, but I can't see it. But it's going to take me a wee while to get accustomed to all the player aids and where the good bits are to look and whatever. Anyway, 8.13, page 14. Unit activation command. Activate units in the formation specified on the card per 9.0, and that tells you, we'll move on to that in a second. But here's the condition: if at least 1 non-isolated unit in the specified formation is on the map or in the reserve box. If this minimum requirement is not met, do not perform the activation command. Soviet formations are not subject to consecutive activation restriction. So we do need to make sure that there's at least 1 6th Army unit that's non-isolated, and it's either on the map or in the reserve box. Okay, well we know these things are going to be there as from the start. So yeah, I'll keep the camera there because it's going to be annoying to like move in. I can assure you there's 6 Army units on the map. There's none in the reserves actually. But I could pan up to the reserves bit up there. There's the reserves, but the reserves work differently in this. These reserves will come out at certain points within the Soviet activation, and also when Soviets attack, they might just appear and join the attack. So it's, yeah, and this is what makes the game completely different to the previous things like that. It's yeah, that's cool. Okay, so we can activate all units. So again, I'm just want to do this kind of slow. So what I'll do is we are going to be able to activate this. So I can now take this card and I'll bring it up and we'll look at some of the units on the map. So there's our 6 army units in there. There's one. They're all infantry at the moment, aren't they? There's 2 of them there, and then our 2 there. So they've got 5 units. Like I say, there's none in the reserves. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is check for either the front objective or army objective. Now, we did place both front markers on the map. They're just down here. So they were already placed in the sort of that first sort of setup impulse thing. Now there's two armies that have an army objective, and that's the first guards, which is the kind of purpley ones, isn't it? Where are they? Yeah, that's these guys here. So they have an army objective, and the other one for the Voronezh front is the 40th Army, and that's the ones with the black border at the top. So my understanding, I think, is once if they become active, then we'd need to place their army objective markers. But again, I'm looking at a combination of the rulebook and the player aid here, just to so rulebook. This is rule 9, Soviet unit activations on page 15. So step 1, between turn 1s and 7, objective check. Check the location of the objective marker for the front or army to which the active units belong. Relocating or removing it if required, 9.1. So we need to look at 9.1. So 9.1 says Soviet front and army objectives. The 2 Soviet fronts each have a front objective marker placed in a hex on the map. Soviet units tend to move towards their front objective unless other movement methods take precedence. As Soviet units approach a front objective, the marker is relocated to keep objectives ahead of the Soviet offensive. And then 1 army in each Soviet front, the 40th and the 1st Guards, has an army objective, which I've explained to you. That takes priority over the front objective marker for units in that army, given the unit's army-specific objectives. Okay, so placing and relocating. 9.11, the objective markers for the Voronezh and Southwest fronts are placed on the map as indicated in the initial setup adjustments, which were done. During play, upon activating the Soviet formation, check the location of the objective marker for the front to which the activated formation belongs. If any active or an inactive unit in the active Soviet front occupies the objective hex or occupies the hex adjacent to the German occupied objective hex, or is proximate to the unoccupied objective hex, then relocate the front objective marker. If none of these situations apply, the objective marker remains in its current hex. Okay, so, well, the big one there, well, there you go. I mean, no, maybe not. I was going to say, if we had left that gap there, could he have been proximate? Maybe not. No, I don't think he could quite reach to give. So it would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He could have got in there right enough. But anyway, so there's none of it's an inactive or active Soviet unit. There's none of them in the actual hex with the front. And if a German, because German units can occupy these hexes, so if we had a German unit in there, then the other condition is there's a Soviet unit adjacent to this German unit in here. That would move the front marker. Or the last one is proximate to the unoccupied objective hex. So if we have any units that would be proximate, whether they're active or not, then that's when these would move. Well, actually, we're looking at the southwest one, aren't we? Because it's a southwest card, so we're not actually looking at that one. So, but as you can see, the line's not moved at all here. It's all locked in place. And, you know, even these units, because if they could get down to there, then that would still, if one of these third tank units were proximate to that hex, that would still move it. That's my understanding. If any active or inactive unit in the active Soviet front, if any active, okay, that's not true then. Sorry, because it's if any active or inactive unit in the active Soviet front. So the active Soviet front is the southwestern front. So it would have to be these units that would need to be proximate to it. That was rubbish then. What was it? Yeah, okay. So, you know what? There's not. It's not. We've just put them on the map. Nothing's happened yet. They're still going to stay in place. So we don't need to worry about that. Let's move on. Right, step 2, movement. Move active on map units according to the movement methods currently in effect. 9.2. So this is the big stuff. This is where it kind of kicks in, and we start getting a bit flustered and wonder what we've done. Okay, so there's the 5 units we're looking at, right? And so throughout games turns 1 to 4, we use the movement methods in 9.21. Use throughout game turns 1 to 4. Okay, and 9.21. I'm just trying to compare it with yeah. Okay. Take VPX is the first one, right? So for each method, check all supplied active units one at a time in ascending or descending order, then proceed to the next method. Continue until all units have moved or all methods checked, right? And then the first one, now, I'm not going to try and show you this on the camera. I mean, you can have your player aid open or your rule book. Obviously, I'm going to eventually get down to just using the player aid. So the first one is take VP hex, and you're doing it in descending order. What I'd like to do also is, I know it's maybe not a big deal, but these are the 2 VP hexes that the Soviets start with, and then the other one's over there. So I put an ownership marker. It just makes it look better when you're looking at things, just to see. Right, so the first method is wanting to try and take a VPX. Enter an empty German town or city, unless it happens to be targeted exclusively for the inactive front. And what that means is yeah, they're coloured, right? Yeah, let me just show you. Right, okay, I think this is what this means. This town here is just, yeah, that's it. I'm looking up at the key there. It's just targeted for Vornes front because it's got the orange round it. Whereas this one along here has got the red, so it's just targeted for the southwest front. And then just to show you one that's targeted for both, Zimniev there has got half orange and half sort of red round it. So that's what that means. But we don't have any, there's no any German VP hexes that we can move into. Obviously that's a priority. If there's one sitting open, they're going to move into that. They also then, they would consider empty map edge VP hexes as well, but there's none of them proximate. So step 2 is an ascending order, adjacent to German VP hex and near objective. And it says skip method 2 if the active front's objective marker has been removed from play. Well, it's not. So, and then it explains move to a hex closer to or within 4 hexes of the unit's objective marker and adjacent to German VP hex. So I don't think we can do it. I mean, I think we're kind of locked in. I mean, I should just be briefly jumping over these movement methods, saying that, okay, first one's, can we get to a VPX? No. Well, the second one is, can we get adjacent to this guy, for instance? Because he's, and would it be closer to our front? Right, there's our front marker down there. We're looking at this in ascending order, so there's unit 3, what we got, 3, 4, 8, 7 and 13. So there's unit 3, so, you know, if these German units went in there and he could move down adjacent to this, he would be adjacent to, a German, is adjacent to a German VP hex, and he's closer to his front objective, so you can see what it's trying to do. Okay, so but again, these units are all locked in. They're not. We're needing to move further into things before we can find something for them to do. Step 3 is open supply line. I'd rather just glance at on the rulebook just now. Right, so step 3, move to a hex that if occupied by a unit would enable a unit in the active front and currently unable to trace supply. Well, none of that. Everything's in supply. Everyone can trace supply at the beginning of the game. And in fact, currently unable to trace supply. Yeah, I was going to say, note that this movement method begins on game turn 3. Yeah, sorry, that is from game turn 3. Even though Soviet supply checks begin on game turn 4. So it's to kind of like get them a heads up really. If they're unable to trace supply in game turn 3, they want to be ready for it, because supply starts getting checked for them in game turn 4. So yeah, we ignore that one just now, because that's just from turn 3 onwards. And then we've got movement methods 4 to 9 and Soviet spearheads. Right. Okay. I'll actually tell you why I didn't actually notice that open supply line is because it doesn't have it on the player aid there. See, open supply line 3. It doesn't mention that it's from turn 3 onwards on the player aid, but it does in the rulebook. So I think that's maybe been an omission there. Unless, again, like we say, I mean, the player aids are just there to try and, they can't have everything. So anyway, I think that's why I missed it initially, but anyway. Okay, so units in the Soviet 3rd Tank Army and Mobile Group Popov are considered spearhead units as long as their front subjective marker is in play. And then methods 4 to 9 are skipped by certain spearhead units in early game turns. Well, this isn't a spearhead. They're not spearhead units because we're looking at 6th Army. So yeah, so we can skip that bit and just move on to step 4, cause surround, can't we? I think so. Yeah, so we don't have active spearhead units yet here. The 6th Army units are not considered spearhead units, so we don't need to look at that. So we continue on and we go through steps 4 to 9 now. And step 4 is cause surround. So can we cause any surround? Well, again, no, because we can't get moving through. There's little place for them to move. What they're actually going to do is probably attack this Rouse unit, I think, or maybe this guy or something like that. So they can't break through and surround any German unit. So next step is move to enter 2 Soviet VP hex. Move to enter garrison Soviet VP hex. Move to enter garrison Soviet VP hex. Well, no, there's not. And the reason they're going to do that is, until which a German unit is proximate. Yeah. Where are we? Move to enter garrison Soviet VP hex targeted for active front to which a German unit is proximate. Yeah, so I mean, the only empty Soviet VPX we've got along here, it's targeted for Vornish front anyway, so it's not going to do this. It's not going to do this. I know. I probably should just be jumping right through these because we know they're not going to do any of this, but I guess we've got to start getting into the sway of it, the swing of it, and try and do it to make sure I don't miss anything. Right, and then step 6 is move adjacent to German VP hex targeted for active front. Well, we can't do that either. Right, and this is our VP hex here, but we can't move adjacent to German VP hex. Move adjacent, step 7, adjacent to German unit in a logistics hex. Move adjacent to German unit in a logistics hex for the active front and not currently surrounded. Right, logistics hexes are these here. So there's this bunch of them here for the southwest front, and then we've got a bigger bunch of them here for the Voronezh front. I'm not quite sure what the purpose of them is. There must be a good reason for them, but they're only there in that area. That's all I can see on the map. Yeah. So we can't move adjacent to a German unit that's in one of them. It's over here, so we can't do that. So, and then step 8, we're starting to get somewhere. Adjacent to a German unit. Move to an unoccupied hex that is adjacent to a German unit and not adjacent to a Soviet unit adjacent to that same German unit. Okay, so yeah, reading that one is a bit yeah, that takes me back to one of the bits that we got kind of adjusted a little bit, didn't it? And John did mention that it could have affected some wording in the German solo rules as well. I really need to print that a bit of rat out, so I'm kind of got that beside me just for a glance, don't I? Yeah, that would be sensible, Grant. Well, let's try and move on just now. So, move to an unoccupied hex that is adjacent to a German unit and not adjacent to a Soviet unit adjacent to that same German unit. Yeah, it's a mouthful, isn't it? What it kind of means as, like, this is an unoccupied hex that is adjacent. Oops, I took my eye off things there. This is an unoccupied hex that's adjacent to a German unit, right? However, it is also adjacent to a Soviet unit adjacent to the same German unit. So that isn't an option. If this guy wasn't there, then this hex would be an option, and in fact, so would that. They would both be an option for that movement method. So, and you can see that all these are already adjacent anyway. This one, I mean, we could go out and into this hex, but then we'd be in an occupied hex adjacent to this unit, but this is adjacent to it as well. So that doesn't come into it. I don't think there's anything we can do with that. No, because I think they're the two hexes that we can look at here that we could move to that are unoccupied and are adjacent to a German unit. But you'd still be adjacent to a Soviet unit that's adjacent to the same German unit. Okay, Grant, move on. Right, step 9 then. Now this is from turn 4 plus. Yeah, that says 4 plus on the, so just to show you there on the Polaroid, right? Remember, we're going back to, I'm not going to get in. Open supply line. Sorry, can we zoom out a bit, Grant? There we go. Open supply line. Now, according to the rules, that's only from turn 3 onwards. Wasn't it? Yeah, it says open supply line 3 plus, well, it's not going there. And then, but look at relieve garrison 4 plus. And that does have it in the rule book after. Yeah, so they've, yeah, I kind of missed that. I think that should have said 3 plus in there. Okay, however, let's move on. So relieve garrison is from turn 4 onwards. So we're not there yet. So that's us got through the spearhead part, which we weren't a spearhead anyway. So now we're on to movement method 10. So movement methods 10 to 12 apply to all units, so we can go back to that. So 10 to 12. So 10 is follow movement arrows. If the unit occupies a hex with a movement arrow, move hex to hex in the direction indicated by arrows. In order to move by this method, the unit must be able to spend its entire movement allowance. Yeah, so this isn't going to happen. I mean, he's got, and you'll see there's a wee V there and an S there, so that's for Voronezh front units. That arrow's for the southwest front, so he can't move with his arrows. He can't move with his arrow, and they can't. Sorry, they can't. They can't move from there to there because they're going to zone of control to zone of control. That's one of the secondary arrows, that wee dash there. But it can't move that way either. So they can't move the arrows. So step 11, move closest to front objective. And then skip if front objective marker has been removed from play. Move to a hex closer to the unit's front objective, not the same distance from the objective. Okay. So this is done in ascending order. So can any of this happen then? Okay, so just going to jump ahead to look at the restrictions here, because it looks like we would be breaking one if this unit could move, because we're going to leave that exposed. This guy could go 1, 2, and then into there, or this guy. So I'm pretty sure he's not going to move out of that. So 9.23 restrictions on Soviet movement. These restrictions apply at the end of a unit's move by any movement method. Do not conduct a move if it would cause a surrounded German unit to become no longer surrounded. I'm not going to read it all, I'm just going to cause one or more German units to become proximate to, or from 4+ German supply traceable to, an empty or garrison Soviet town or city hex. So that's what we would be breaking there. Cause a map edge VP hex to become vacant unless Soviet supply cannot be traced to the hex. From 4+, cause a Soviet unit to become unable to trace supply. From 1 to 6, end with a Soviet mechanized unit in a marsh hex. Okay. Right, so if this unit was to try and get closer to his, like 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, I mean, going from there to there is probably closer to its objective. Well, actually, it's maybe not. I was thinking it was further along, isn't it? It's down here, so maybe not. Because he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 away there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, well, was it? Can he get there? 1, 2, 3. No, he can't. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's going to go 9 away as well, isn't it? Yeah, okay. So he can anyway, but he wouldn't be leaving that in a state where they would be proximate to it. That would be breaking a restriction. So unit 4 next, could he get? No, because yeah, we can't go through this hex either, can we? So no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, if that's 9, that's 9 as well, isn't it? Yeah. So none of them can actually move closer to their objective. I don't believe. Right, yeah, I don't think the units are going to move at all. Because next, that was move closest. Yeah, because movement 11 is move closest to front objective. Well, they can't get any closer. 12 is strength and potential attack. So this is the last movement method. If not adjacent to a German unit, well, they're all adjacent to German units. But if they weren't, moved to a hex adjacent to a German unit to which another active Soviet unit is also adjacent. A unit starting adjacent to a German unit does not move by this method. So no. So we've been right through the movement methods, and I feel totally uncomfortable about all this. I'm definitely going to look over this video, and this is where, I mean, we're not having a shot at the game. You know, you just don't know what you're missing, if you're getting things right here or not. But right, we'll see. We'll push on. I'm going to look over the video when I'm done anyway. before I put it out there. But that's at 54 minutes, Grant. So, okay, so we went right through the movement, and nothing can move, and which is fine. Check units for eligibility to move by given method. Move all eligible units by given movement method. Continue down the list of movement methods until all units are moved or being directed not to move, or until all movement methods have been checked. Well, none of them were directed not to move, but we've got through all movement methods and they've all been checked. They're all subject to rules for movement 10 and the Soviet movement restrictions 9.23. A unit that hasn't moved after all movement methods are checked does not move in that activation. Okay, so, but that doesn't mean to say they're not going to do anything, because that was step 2 of the activations. So step 3 is attacks. Conduct attack checks and attack with active units, and then add eligible active reserve units to attacks. Right, well, we've not got any 6 army units in the reserve units box, but we will look and do an attack check. So this is 9.4. Okay. So 9.4, page 23, Soviet attack checks. During step 3 of a Soviet activation, active supplied non-dispersed Soviet units participate in attack checks against adjacent German occupied hexes. If a check against a given German occupied hex is successful, the Soviet units participating in the check immediately attack those German units. A Soviet unit can participate in multiple attack checks until a check succeeds, but can attack only once in a given activation. Right, so attack check sequence in ascending order, we're doing this. Check each active unit adjacent to German occupied hex. If that hex has not already been the target of an attack check this activation. Check active units one at a time in ascending numerical order to determine if that Soviet unit will attack the target hex. The active unit being checked is referred to as the lead unit. An active unit can't be the lead unit if it already attacked in this activation or is dispersed, out of supply or isolated. Furthermore, if the target is supplied, the active unit can't be a lead unit if it has just one step or is in a VP hex occupied, right? Occupied by less than 3 steps. Well, that means he can't be, because he's in a VP hex and there's only 2 steps, so he cannot be a lead unit. Doing a check. Right. Okay. So furthermore, if the target is supplied, and you know this guy, this is the first one we'll be looking at, because he's selector number 3. He's a low selector number, so he's got 2 units he could look at. I mean, my guess is he'd be more looking at this because he's got help from there, but he can't be considered because it says, furthermore, if the target is supplied, they're both supplied, the active unit can't be a lead unit if it is in a VP hex occupied by less than 3 steps. So yeah, so he cannot be a lead unit. So now we're looking at unit 4 then, because he cannot be. That's not to say I don't think he can. Can he still come and join in? I'm not sure yet. So we can't look at him as a lead unit. So we'll look at next in line is unit 4, right? So we're looking at him, and he's adjacent to this guy. You can only check this guy. So to conduct an attack check with a given lead unit, add the combat strength of the lead unit to the strengths of the following additional Soviet units. All other active units that have not yet attacked this activation and are adjacent to the target hex, including units with just 1 step, and then it says exclude dispersed, out of supply and isolated units. Okay, so it's not restricting this guy from attacking here then, is it? So he can only look here. So that's 4, 7 strength attacking here. But it looks like we can include that as well. Yeah, okay, the way I'm reading that, it doesn't seem to restrict this guy. Although this guy couldn't be the lead unit and determine an attack against this and getting these guys to join, he's not prevented from joining this attack, which I'm slightly baffled about. I remember rules previously you couldn't do, in fact, was that not some kind of errata that came in regarding a VP hex, that you couldn't attack out of it, or something. There's nothing to say you can't attack out of it. It just says to conduct an attack check with a given lead unit. So we're looking at this now. We know he can't be a lead unit, so we're looking at this guy. Add the combat strength of the lead unit to the strengths of the following additional Soviet units. So all other active units that have not yet attacked this activation and are adjacent to the target hex, including units with just one step. Now the just one step units, they were restricted from being lead units, but it doesn't exclude any units that are in a VP hex occupied by less than 3 steps. It doesn't say it there, so there must be some reason why it can't be the lead unit, but it's okay to still join the attack. I can't quite think about how that is just now, but okay, so adjacent to this is a lead unit, we've got 4. So we add in other active units that are adjacent, that's 7, and then this guy's 4. So that's 11. That's 11 strength we've got. Okay. You would then add the strength of any active Soviet reserve units. Well, we've none of them. I've said there's no 6 army reserves in the reserve units box. And then, if the auxiliary card shows the assault coordination combat tactic, you would include all non-active Soviet units adjacent to the target and capable of attack. Well, that's not that's our auxiliary card. It's got air power and partisans as combat tactics. That's nice. Not. Anyway, so. But there's not any other adjacent unit. You know, that means if there was inactive units adjacent, they would join as well. So once a group of units eligible for a potential attack has been identified, calculate a situational strength ratio using all those Soviet units. And then it says exception, if all defending units of the attack are isolated, immediately conduct the attack. So we're still checking here to see if the attack's going to go ahead. So situational strength ratio. Comparing the total Soviet strength to the strength of all German units to target hex, taking into account strength adjustments for rivers and marsh terrain called for by terrain effects chart. Then add to, yeah. So is there anything? It's really, I'm assuming it's the same, and it's the Donets River. Donets River. If all units attack across Donets hexside, defenders hits are reduced by 1. Well, that's not coming into situational strength, is it? It's a Dnieper River, I think will count. Strength of units attacking across Dnieper hexside is halved. If all units attack across the Dnieper hexside, defender hits by 1. Minor River is just mud turn. Yeah, so there's nothing. You know, they are all coming across this minor river, but there's nothing. It's just the same as the other game, I believe. So, but for the defender, who's here, he's only in a clear hex. Has he got an improved position? He would get a +1 for that. No. Defender adjacent to 1 or more supplied German units. No. He would get a +1 for that. All attackers across Donets or Dnieper River hexsides. He would get a +1 for that. Right, why is that saying that? Taking into account strength adjustments for rivers and marsh terrain. Okay, yeah. Combat strength of mech units defending in or attacking into or from is halved, rounded down. And then, so it's really just marsh and Donets rivers that come into it. So, but that situational adjustment is all attackers across Donets or Dnieper River hexsides, they would get a +1. This is just a minor river, so it's not. From turn 5 onwards, all attackers and defenders outside Soviet support were not there yet. All German units dispersed, they would get a -1. All German units out of supply, they get a -2. So, no, there's nothing to change. Their situational strength is 3, ours was 11, so it's 11 to 3, which is 3 to 1, isn't it? So, conduct attack check. Once the situational strength ratio is calculated, we've got 3 to 1. Use it to determine if the attack occurs, but not to resolve the combat. So, if equal to or greater than 3 to 1, or if all defending units are isolated, conduct the attack, right? And if it was less than 1 to 1, we don't conduct the attack. And then if it's in between 1 to 1 and 3 to 1, there's a big kind of procedure you've got to go through with a lot of checks to make, and I think you've got the tactical value, is it? This is something that new from the previous game, which looks quite good, fun, I think. And then if you get that tactical value to equal or exceed 7, the attack proceeds. If it's less than 7, it doesn't succeed. So we've got 3 to 1 odds though, 11 to 3, so the attack is going to go ahead. When an attack check results in a valid attack, immediately conduct the attack in accordance with the procedures in 12.0. So I'm going to just go for that and mull. Yeah, because this is dragging on a bit. And I know this is going to be a bit clunky at first, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of to be expected. Well, unless I'd went away and played the game myself a couple of times then. But then I'm also trying to go through things for people that, that haven't played it. And myself. Okay, combat. Combat occurs during the Soviet impulse when Soviet units attack your units, and during the German impulse when your units attack Soviet units. Well, this is a Soviet combat sequence. Active Soviet units attack German units. And we've done the check. Soviets are attacking, we are the defender. Yeah, so once you've determined the target, resolving the following sequence. Step 1, add active Soviet reserve units. And we would skip this if the attack is overwhelming. It's got a link to that, 12.38. I want to say it's 91 or something. Well, actually, there's a few different options. Attack is odds of 8 to 1 or greater. Attack is odds of 6 to 1 or greater and qualifies as a large attack. All defending units are unsupplied or dispersed, and attack has odds of 5 to 1 or greater. All defending units are isolated and not at VPS. Right, well, none of that. However, we've no Soviet reserves anyway, so we're not bringing them on. But it does apply to the next part, the overwhelming attack as well. So step 2 is draw a card and apply combat tactics. Skip if the attack is overwhelming or not in Soviet support. It's not overwhelming, it's not in Soviet support. So we're going to draw a Soviet card and apply the card's combat tactic to the combat. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. We're going to draw a combat tactic. Right, so we get assault coordination, and that is reuse if drawn during combat or applied as a combat tactic. If drawn during combat or applied as a combat tactic, shuffle this card back into the draw pile. No reuse on a mud turn or when 3 or fewer cards in the Soviet draw pile. Like I say, I think there's quite a lot of these. This one itself's got it on it as well. So this isn't going to apply, is it? However, this is where things change up a bit, I think. Hang on though. Let's just go through this. So we've drawn assault coordination, which does nothing because there's no other units adjacent that aren't already attacking. 3. Okay, so hang on, where did I see? What was it? Okay, I'm not sure if I'm reading a contradiction here or if I'm just not reading this. I've not read through it all properly. I'm on page 31 here, 12.3 combat tactics. Playing German combat tactics. And step 3 of a Soviet attack and step 2 of a German attack. We are in step... That's wrong. I think it's the other way about, is it not? Oh. No, that's when we can play combat tactics. So no, that's right then. Sorry, it's in step 2 of a German attack. Yeah, and step 3 of a Soviet attack. That's when we can play combat tactics. Sorry, my bad. As long as at least one of your units involved in the combat is in supply and not dispersed. Yeah, I was just wanting to know about the Soviets playing them though. In order to play or apply a combat tactic during a German attack, tactic must... This is where I think I've been reading it wrong then. In order to play or apply a combat tactic during a German attack, so this is when we're attacking, so this isn't what's happening here, the tactic must provide a benefit other than an additional chit draw. For example, you can't apply a second artillery tactic, you can't apply reinforced battle if no units can reinforce, and you can't apply a combat tactic beneficial only to the defence. On the other hand, a tactic that adds combat strength is considered beneficial even if it doesn't affect the combat odds. Yeah, I remember that was talked about in previous game as well. Okay, so I've maybe been reading that slightly wrong then. So applying Soviet combat tactics. Soviet attack, and that's what we're doing. In step 2 of a Soviet attack, one or more combat tactics may be applied to the attack. If the attack is not overwhelming and the German defender, or at least one attacking Soviet unit, is in a hex in Soviet support. If the attack is not in the German defender, or at least one attacking Soviet unit is in a hex in Soviet support. Well, turns whatever 1 to 4, I think, isn't it? Everything's in support. So, well, sorry, it's only the Soviets that care about support, but they're all in support. Soviet combat tactics are applied to the Soviet attack from 4 potential sources checked in this order. On game turns 1 and 2, the artillery combat tactic and an additional combat chit draw is applied to every attack against German unit in the printed Soviet artillery barrage zone. Right, well, I've not got around to that yet, but yeah, I suppose I should. It's not actually saying it there. Well, it's pointless to 12.3. So, well, I've not done anything yet. Let's see. Well, hang on. Where's your dice, Grant? Come on, get with it. Let's get organised here. Right, that's the dice I usually use for that. So what did I say we had? We're not looking situationally anymore. I think, although I think they were exactly the same, weren't they? It was 4, 8, 11 against 3. So just short of 4 to 1. So it's just 3 to 1. So 3 to 1 odds. This is the activation card. So that's this bit down the bottom about reuse and shuffle in. That's not applying, but it might well apply to this one. So 3 to 1 odds, and then chip pools. Right, I'm assuming everything's the same there. So it'd be 1, 2, 3. So 1 for each unit is 3. Now they are in the artillery barrage zone, so they're going to get artillery, so that's 4. Okay? That's where we're at just now. So I should have had that like that, because that's usually how I would do it. Then I would draw the combat tactic, right? So I like it said, going back to 12.3, on game turns 1 and 2, the artillery combat tactic, right, we've got that. If the Soviet units were activated by the Stavka command card, NKV combat tactic, right? Well, it's not, right? And then we draw 1 card from the Soviet deck, and that's what this is, and apply any combat tactics listed on the card. Add a combat chit draw to the attack for each tactic on the card, even if that tactic does not otherwise apply to the attack. And then after resolving the combat, discard the card. Exception 12.32. Right, okay, this could come into it then. Exception 12.32 is Soviet tactic card reuse. The combat tactic description on certain Soviet cards direct you to return the card to the Soviet draw pile and shuffle the pile after applying the combat tactic instead of discarding the card. The reuse direction applies if the card was drawn in an attack or a defense even if not applied, or was applied when in the auxiliary card box. Ugh, wow, that's getting on top of me. That I thought it was going to start telling me there that I just put that card back and shuffle it in, but give me a sec. Okay, that seems to be all worse than I thought then. So, right, the way I'm seeing that is, so we draw one card from the Soviet deck and apply any combat tactics listed on the card. Add a combat, apply any combat tactics listed on the card. We've got Assault Coordination, so it can be applied, but it does nothing. It does nothing apart from drawing an extra chip pool, if that's allowed. Which it wasn't in the last game, but however. Add a combat chip draw to the attack for each tactic on the card, even if that tactic does not otherwise apply to the attack. After resolving the combat, discard the card. And then the exception is, because it says this, we're going to shuffle that back in. So, it seems odd. So even if we had drawn, I don't know, if we had drawn reinforced battle and no unit could reinforce, think of something better than that, Grant. Hang on. Okay, so just to double check, I mean, fixed artillery and we're outside fixed artillery range, or partisans, and it says, partisans says does not apply to a Soviet attack against a defender in a hex other than city, town or woods. So right now if they had partisans, it doesn't apply. They still get to draw a chip pool, and if it had this reuse, we shuffle it back in as well. And bearing in mind, this could have applied and brought a load of units in, added its chip pools to all the units it brought in, and then that would shuffle back in as well. Wow, that's strong, isn't it? Okay. Well, hopefully we've got that right. It does say there, add a combat chip draw to the attack for each tactic on the card, even if that tactic does not otherwise apply to the attack. Okay. So what I'm going to do is add a chip pool for that to 5, and then I'm going to just take this and shuffle it back in. I can do that now, can't I? Yes, I think so. So I'm going to do that. So, and then step 4 of 12.3 combat tactics. If there is a card in the auxiliary card box listing combat tactics, and all those combat tactics, and all is in capital letters, meet the requirements of 12.31, apply all those tactics to the attack and add a combat chip draw to the attack for each tactic. If any of those tactics don't apply, none are applied. Okay, 12.31. So Soviet auxiliary. Well, let's see what we've got, because, well, this is kind of going to come into what I said, isn't it? We've got air power and partisans. Now, air power would work, but strangely enough, the partisans will not, because this is a clear hex. So yeah, this could be good just to try and get this into my head, I think. So 12.31 says, if there is a card in the Soviet auxiliary card box during a non-overwhelming Soviet attack and Soviet support, that's where we're at, yes, the combat tactics listed on the card may be applied to the attack. All the listed combat tactics are awarded to the first Soviet attack of the activation to which they all apply, and the auxiliary card is then discarded. And the exception is if it had reuse on it, again, you would use it and then reuse it, shuffling it in again. It's not got that on it this time. An auxiliary card's combat tactics are applied to Soviet attack only if all the tactics listed on the auxiliary card provide a benefit to the attacker other than an additional chip draw. So they would supply 2 additional chip draws. Air power would do something. However, partisans isn't working, so I don't think they're going to use this. If any of the auxiliary card's tactics can be applied, then none of its tactics are applied and the card remains in the auxiliary box. The auxiliary card's combat tactics are not applied in these situations. Alright, so it shows you, okay, yeah. So, reinforced battle, if there's no units available to reinforce. Fixed artillery, that's what I was asking about, if beyond the fixed artillery range. And there's partisans. Partisans, if not attacking into a woods, town or city hex. Okay, so this can't be applied. If, however, we had drawn this as a combat tactic for the turn instead of that assault coordination, then my take on that would be it only affects it if it's coming from the auxiliary card. So right, well, somebody tell me if I've got this wrong, and it would be the same, but I don't think so. I think if we'd drawn this in step, what is it? 3, draw 1 card from the Soviet deck and apply any combat tactics listed on the card. Add a combat chip draw to the attack for each tactic on the card, even if a tactic does not otherwise apply to attack. Yeah, it's clear, isn't it? So we draw this card as a combat tactic. We would apply air power and partisans. We would find out that partisans done nothing. We would add 2 chip pools for the air power and partisans, and we would apply air power to the attack. The partisans would just not happen. It would not do nothing. It would draw an extra chip pool. However, if it comes from the auxiliary card and you can't do one of the 2, or even would I be right in saying even if it matched? Yeah. If the combat tactic is identical to a tactic in the combat tactic card draw for this attack, that wouldn't apply as well. If there is more than one tactic listed on the card and any of those tactics do not apply. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so this doesn't apply. Yeah, okay, so that goes back in the auxiliary card box. Oops, I put them in the wrong place. Right, okay. Okay, so we've still got an auxiliary card, right, and no extra chip pools. Right, so I think we're 3-1 odds with 5 chip pools. I think that's us, isn't it? Okay, so now is it's our turn to play a combat tactic. So what do we have? Let's zoom out a little bit. Right, we've got assault coordination, that can't be applied. I've got artillery. Well, they're playing artillery as well. I've got air power, I've got artillery. Yeah. I think we'll just let that go. The problem is it's going to be 3-1 odds. 3-1 odds. They've got artillery. That's the only thing they've got, isn't it? Artillery. The assault coordination didn't do anything. Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's going to leave a big gap if we knock that guy out, and it. I mean, it is only the 6th army. They are only infantry units. I don't feel it's worthy of playing a card though. That's the thing. It's not as if I've got a card that might. What is it you get? I'm sure you get, what is it, pull out or bug out or whatever it is. Okay, I'm not going to play a card then. So then we move on to step 4, draw combat chits. Draw chits from the cup equal to the maximum number of chit draws allowed to the Soviet. Yeah, it's straightforward with this. Check to see if the situation on either side of the chit applies to combat. If so, the chit is retained. Yeah, and then calculate hits. Yeah, it's much easier with us because they don't mess about. They just draw 5 chits. There's not even a look at minimum chits. They just draw 5 and that's it. So I will get 5 chits and lay them out, and we'll see what happens. Okay, there we go. That was pretty good actually, I think, for us. This was the third chit that we drew actually. Unfortunately, one of the bad clears. It was City Town on the other side. Only attacker armour was the first chit I drew, but it's all infantry. We'd got 2 of these attacker command 4 or 5s, and the cards only a 2. So we got lucky with that one. Back of these is disperse unsupplied, which is not. And this one was city or attack not supported, and town woods are broken on the back. So 1 hit for the defender, so D1. No hits for them. So yeah, not the worst, because I could just retreat 1 hex, and I think would be okay about that. Yeah, okay, so 1 hit to satisfy. We can't go there. We can go here or here. I mean, it's more sensible going in the woods, doesn't it? Yeah, kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Beside these buddies as well. So yeah, I think. Well, hang on though. He can advance into that hex. There's still not a gap though, is there? No, that's fine. So we'll retreat there, and that soaks up that 1 hit. They had no hits to take. Combat, retreats and advances. Okay, this might be different. I'm going to try and just jump on a little bit here, because it's getting a bit long, this. And we do actually need to consider, yeah, these 2 might attack as well. You know what I should have done as well? Turn these guys around. Now, I generally do that when I move units as well, and that can be sometimes tricky. You just can't. I'll be able to suss it out, but I should have turned them around, because none of these units moved at all, but these did attack. So yeah, it's a bit tricky to sort of. Yeah, we'll work it out. That's fine. Right. So advance after combat. Yeah. So any of the infantry units can move, and which Soviet advance after combat, check and ascend in order. However, don't cause German proximity to Soviet VP hex. So if he moves in here, no, he might be alright actually. Yeah, because we can't move in there now. So he is actually okay. I think that's alright. So into the first that applies, VP hex, no, primary direction. Well, that is primary direction for the southwestern front. Right, so I believe he's going to advance into there automatically. Yes. Now, like I said before, he wasn't able to move. I was talking about moving back the way, but because this Rouse unit's retreated back now, we can't. We're not proximate to this, so I think that's okay. Don't cause German proximity to unoccupied Soviet VP hex. Well, we've not. He can't move from there to there. And if no, that wouldn't happen. That's fine. Right. Okay. So next one in line would be Unit 4. Where's his arrows? Yeah, it's in his forward arrow. So it's primary direction. There's 1 unit already advanced, so he would advance on a 1 to 6. He's rolled a 5, so that'll be that, I think. So Unit 4 advances, still not broke any restriction. Medic units can't advance into marsh. Yeah, there's only the restriction is leaving proximity to a VP hex. So it looks, yeah, and these are only infantry. We can't. Well, he only retreated 1 hex anyway. Right, and then this guy can't advance because there's 2 units already advanced in this hex, so he just stays where he is. So that's that. Okay, so that's that attack, and then we need to go back now and check. What is it? 9.4. Oops. hang on a sec. Right, yeah, this has ended up taking longer than I thought. I should realise that obviously these first few are going to be... So we've got 5 against 3 here. Now he is adjacent, so yeah, let's try and speed that up a bit. So we're checking situationally, 5 against 3. He has got a defender adjacent to 1 or more supplied German units. We give him +1. So that's 5 against 4. 5 against 4. So he's only got 1 and 1. It's not less than 1 to 1, though, is it? 5 against 4, and yeah, no, it is 1 to 1. Then the other conditions apply. No. Right, so we're 1 to 1. So if the ratio is at least 1 to 1, less than 3 to 1, calculate the tactical value of the Soviet attack by totaling the following factors. Right. Give me a dice then. So plus the command value of the activating command card. Well, that's 2. Right, that starts us with 2. Plus 2 if the situational strength ratio is greater than or equal to 2 to 1. It was not. Plus 1, and this is on turns 1 and 2, if the Soviet artillery barrage bonus applies. It does, so that's 3. Plus 1 if the attack is supported. All attacks on game turns 1 to 4 are supported, so yes, it's supported. That's up to 4. Plus 1 if only Soviet units have armour in the combat. That's no, because no units have armour. Plus 1 if any attacking units are surrounded. No, he's not surrounded. Plus 1 if flanking will apply, or if the defender will be surrounded and unable to trace supply once all attacking units are in place. And that's taking into account reserves coming in, I think. Flanking does not apply, and no, he won't be surrounded, so there's no addition to that. So we're still only at 4. If the target hex is a VP value of 2 or more, well, it doesn't. Or from 7 plus VP value if the target hex is... right, I'll get to that one. That's from turn 7 onwards. So it doesn't have a value of 2 or more. Plus 1 if the attack is in Soviet support and all combat tactics on the auxiliary card apply to the attack. Well, the attack is in support. However, partisans will not apply again because that's a clear hex. So that's a no as well. And then plus 1 if less than 4 cards are on the Soviet draw pile. There are not. So we're still sitting at 4. If the tactical value equals or exceeds 7, the attack proceeds. If less than 7, the attack is not conducted. Right, so that's not going to happen. Okay. So that's all our attack checks. There's no other unit. Yeah, because the unit underneath, well, that was Unit 7 doing the check, and Unit 13, well, this has already been checked, so we can't do that. Okay, so where do we go to now? So that's all combat done, isn't it? I really just want to go back to the activation, but where was that? Yeah, so that's step 3 of the Soviet unit activation, the attacks, conduct attacks, checks and attacks, we've done all that. Step 4 is from 4 plus to place reserves, we're not there yet. Step 5 is from 2 plus, where we would remove units into the reserve box. Step 6 is 4 plus as well, placing IP, so we're not there yet. Undisperse, remove disperse markers from active units that did not attack. No. Activation completion. After processing all activation steps, the activation command is considered complete even if nothing occurred in those steps. Yeah, that's the same as before as well. So with this part of the game, if nothing was to have happened there, doesn't matter, then that card's then just discarded, and that wasn't a reuse. So that's yeah, I forgot, we've got an auxiliary card, haven't we? So, and it'll tell us. I've just closed the blooming book. Yeah. So after completing a command listed on the card, discard that. If there is a card in the auxiliary card box at this time, move it to the command card box and immediately conduct another Soviet command. So we discard this card, that's been done, and then we move this auxiliary card from where it was, and now it becomes a Soviet command card. So we're now going to look at activating all units in mobile group Popov. So they're basically going to get 2 impulses. However, this is an awful long part now. Some of them are going to be like that at first, I guess, just because it's quite kind of a learning process as well. I mean, like I say, it's all very well reading the rules, but yeah, you do need to play it. And I know that. I know I jumped in. I mean, same with the Soviet Soul. I jumped in without having a play through myself, and I should have done that, but I just wanted. I was itching to play it. I'm still enjoying playing it, and I feel nowadays I've got to have a camera. I've got to record that. It makes, I don't know. It just seems to be, yeah. Anyway, right. Well, I think there's enough there for me to like just leave it at that, and we'll come back to the second half of this first real Soviet impulse, since they're getting another. Yeah, they're going to get activated Popov. Like, great. Okay. Yeah, because that's an hour and 36 minutes. Right, I'll leave it there, and I won't be back tonight because I'm still early tomorrow morning, but I might get another bit back in tomorrow, maybe get that card finished off anyway. But I'd like to watch back over this before I chuck it out there. Just like look over things and see how it is. Okay, I'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully this will go out and there will not be any issues, and I'll come back and finish this first impulse off. Okay, cheers guys.